Hello, Podsmashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. We are your hosts.
Penguin and Termite.
I am Termite.
I am Penguin.
And we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together topics that you care about with video games.
Yeah, and tonight our topic is we're going to be doing the next in our Everything series, where we take one video game franchise and just get it out of our system. And tonight we're doing
Da 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 da.
Uncharted. If we go too much longer, we're going to be
Copywriting? Infringement?
Potentially infringing against the fair use clause of the copyright
Of
laws.
the theme song of Uncharted.
Yes. So
Why did we pick Uncharted to go into? There's no Uncharted game right now.
There's not, but it's super summery game. Like it's a game. It's a great blockbuster game to play over the summer, especially when there's not a lot of game releases. So it's a great franchise. I visited it for the first time last summer, I believe, and I just recently finished playing Lost Legacy. So yeah, it's been it's just like it makes me think of summer when I play Uncharted. But before we get too much into talking about that, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. And what are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking another of my favorite brewery, Dogfish Head's offerings, called Namaste Belgian Style Wheat Beer.
I'd say this is a great beer to kind of say is like a podcast favorite. We've had it before.
Yep.
It's a great mix of like your favorite brewery with one of my favorite styles. So it's a beer that I can very much easily drink and enjoy. And Dogfish Head's one of your favorite breweries. So it's one that like if you're like, oh, I've got Namaste, I'll be like, yeah, sweet, awesome, great.
Yeah, almost a staple.
Not gonna throw a
go-to.
stink about it. Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about it before. In fact, I believe I've read the back in a hilarious way because
you did, because of all the styling.
So we don't need to. You can find our
orange
description
peel,
of it.
lemongrass,
It's
coriander,
good. It's yummy.
peppercorns,
So
karma.
cool.
It's great.
All right, so usually we like to start off our podcast kind of just updating people about the goings-ons in either the video game industry or our lives. We tend to lean more towards news these days because there's a lot of it.
Usually.
Usually. So, you got anything for us today?
The news has been light because E3 is over.
Right, everyone's kind of recovering.
Yep. To not spend a super long amount of time on this or to raise any political concerns, I thought it would be interesting because we did an entire topic about whether the video game industry should unionize. Bernie Sanders calls for the video game industry
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
to unionize.
Yep.
He had a couple of tweets and he was congratulating what are the names of these video game unions that exist right now?
Right,
or
it was
that are
only a
starting.
few, it kind of got overshadowed by E3, but it was a few weeks ago, Riot, after the walkouts at Riot Games, their whole thing was they wanted to, force Riot to get rid of their forced arbitration. We talked about that in a couple podcasts ago, kind of before a lot of the E3 stuff. During the E3 stuff, one of the things that came out was that the deadline, they came to the deadline of when they were supposed to make that decision, and they said that we will not be ending forced arbitration. So that's kind of the people who organized the walkouts were like, all right, well then we're going to move forward with our next steps. So we don't know what that's going to be, but there's going to be
They've
some
at least
action.
announced that.
Oh, and didn't was it Riot who didn't turn over the documentation to the people the government organization that was investigating them? I think it was.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're in some deep crap too. So all of that contributes to this whole this further kind of narrative, I guess, of the game industry unionizing. So we're going to see some big movements.
Bernie's tweet.
Yep, go ahead.
He says, quote, "The video game industry made $43 billion in revenue last year. The workers responsible for that profit deserve to collectively bargain as a part of a union. I'm glad to see unions like at IATSE and the broader at Game Workers movement organizing such workers." So he's talking about Game Workers Unite, and I don't know who IATSE?
Yeah, I forget what IATSE. I know I've heard of them before.
International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees.
I
wonder you know who that is.
I was like, I recognize IATSE. Yep. Yep. So I guess they're involved because it's one of the closest unions to video game work. So they're probably
the
at
context.
least they're probably forming like a mentorship with the Game Workers Unite organization, because they're an existing union with an existing structure. But
that's very similar to the game industry.
Whatever your feelings towards Bernie Sanders are, and whatever your feelings towards Game Workers unions are, you can let that bit of news. We're just telling the news, and we'll let you form your opinions on it. So one of the other controversial things that came out recently, not to get too into the realm of like gossip or anything like that, but there was recently an interview. I only bring it up because it's one of those things that someone said that is going to be quoted over and over again for the next year in video game circles, and that is an EA representative came out and said, our loot boxes are more like surprise mechanics.
Oh.
And they're completely ethical is the quotes that have come out from that.
Yeah, that is
they're
more
like,
gossipy.
it's more like a Kinder egg, those like little eggs that you get with surprises in them, little toys and stuff like that. That's what they're comparing loot boxes. It's not loot boxes, it's not gambling, they're surprise mechanics.
Oh my.
Yeah, so that's another one alongside, do you not have phones? And those quotable pride and accomplishment, facepalm moments for EA, as if they don't have enough heat on them. They've been taking some good strides, EA, towards, recovering from 2017's Battlefront fiasco. And then they come out and say stupid crap like that. And we all just kind of, but because that's all been in the news too, with the whole movement to the loot box regulation, gambling and all that stuff.
That's all part of the union conversation. It's getting...
Yep, it's all like, wrapped up together.
Yeah,
it's
there's
crazy.
so many conversations when you even mention why the gaming industry needs to unionize and the stuff that's happening between them
nuts. All. So, cool. Any other...
The last thing was there was a little bit of clarification on the Microsoft and Sony collaboration.
Yep, you linked me that.
And I did.
Phil Spencer talking about it.
I'm trying to find exactly what the quote was. Aha. It was an announcement that the two developers had signed what's known as a Memorandum of Understanding. I'm quoting an IGN article, so go check this out there. Essentially a letter saying both parties are interested in working together. Quote Phil Spencer, it's the beginning of the kind of conversation. It's the beginning of the kind of conversation. Sony and Azure looking at the future of cloud
gaming.
So
they haven't like agreed to anything. They just agreed to agree to things. Like they've agreed to like team up to figure out solutions. It's smart on Sony's part it's smart on Microsoft's part and Sony's part, but it's smart for Sony. There was a quote in there about like, why would you try to, build your own?
Either you can go and invest tens of millions of dollars in trying to catch up, or you can figure out who your partners are.
Yeah, so Sony has been lagging. Sony just isn't a company that's equipped to get into the cloud computing business in the first place. You know what I mean? They just they haven't been building computers and computer infrastructure for, tens of years like Microsoft and Amazon and Google have. So it's just interesting. One of the quotes that I found interesting was like Phil Spencer said, just because you want to succeed doesn't mean others have to, and others don't have to. Yeah. And he's referencing Sony in that regard. Mm-hmm. The irony is that by teaming up, Microsoft and PlayStation are more or less trying to edge out competitors like Amazon and Google from entering the game in the first place. Yeah. So I do find that kind of funny. It's like, we want Sony to succeed, but so that us and Sony continue to maintain our tenuous monopoly on the gaming industry, and so that other competitors don't come onto the scene. I just kind of found that amusing.
It is funny. Yeah. I still speculate that it's an agreement that Sony's probably what it's gonna look like is Sony rents like some Azure servers to stream stuff on. Yeah. Right. So I don't know, like maybe there's third-party developers out there that are kind of pushing this forward. You have, if you want to develop a game and you're a third-party developer, you're looking at Stadia, you're looking at the Azure servers, but you don't have offerings for Sony because you have Microsoft and Google. So how would Sony want to start trying to play nice with everyone and get someone to make a game for their platform as well to keep them third-party to get that piece of the pie? Yeah. And so I'm guessing
Microsoft is totally happy. They're like, yeah, you keep your platform separate from ours in regards to, like
PSN trophies. Yeah,
exactly. All that stuff. Like they're happy to let them keep it separate. If PlayStation's paying them a monthly fee to leverage their hardware.
So many companies today leverage Amazon. AWS is the Amazon Web Services. And so everyone's already doing that in some ways, just not in the gaming industry. And so now we're seeing Microsoft and Sony kind of shaking hands, the ideas and research going forward about how they can play together.
Yeah, one of the other quotes I liked was when Phil Spencer was like even Google and their platform uses some of our proprietary software and hardware. I'm like, yes, they do.
It's all computing power. Resources.
Microsoft is perfectly happy to profit, double dip, triple dip. Yeah,
lease that stuff out, man.
Yeah,
make that
absolutely.
Money.
Yeah, good for them. So, all right, yeah, they're
cool stuff.
The
future of
game,
gaming, man.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be nuts.
All right. So now our next segment of our podcast that we do is doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Favorite things. It's the first segment of our podcast. I decided to try to I don't know, experiment with not awkwardly segueing into it every time and just being like, okay, cool. Now that that's done, let's talk. Let's do favorite things.
Have you?
It was an awkward, ironically, trying to avoid the awkwardness made this one a little bit more awkward.
You do what you gotta do, homie.
Yeah, whatever. We'll try it. We'll workshop it for a couple episodes, see how it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, so in this segment, we like to talk about, update you of the thing that we're digging this week, the thing we're excited about, the thing that makes us happy in the hopes that you might find your next favorite thing. So, I'll start.
Go ahead.
I got 3 words for you.
Yeah.
Chur effing noble.
Oh, the show?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's the show I canceled HBO for because I knew if I didn't cancel it, I would not. I would end up having to pay for it because I would get totally sucked into
it's
it.
Only
it looks
6
amazing.
Episodes.
Yeah, but it came out over 6 weeks, which is over a month, which means I'd have to pay for HBO for
I see what you mean. Yeah, well, I was able to binge. I was able to binge all 6 episodes, and
someone offered me their account to watch it. They wanted me to see it that bad.
Yeah,
shout out to you, Joel, if you listen. What's up? How about that?
I ended up watching it through potentially less than savory means, but you know, not of.
I thought you have HBO.
Not of anything I did. No, I canceled mine.
Just like I did.
Yeah, exactly. After Game of Thrones. Not because of anything that I pirated, but just because a friend of mine happened to have a pirated copy, and I really wanted to watch it, and I didn't want to pay for HBO again, so all my cards are out on the table. I did a bad thing, but it was worth it because Chernobyl was so good. It's
I hope
just
it was in potato
the performances. No, it was great. The performances, the writing, everything
I'm silently
was
or not silently judging
a little bit. It was amazing. It was so good. So
yeah, it looks amazing. I want to watch it so much.
It definitely maybe reminded me. I was like, okay, there are still good writers at HBO.
Yeah,
like I don't have to write them off completely. Mm-hmm. Like it was such a good.
If you could. Because I don't even know this. I saw a trailer. It looked awesome. What is the general spoiler-free plot of the whole show? Like, if you could just from the pilot, right? That sets the whole thing.
Yeah.
Up,
I mean, Chernobyl is a historical event. So this is historical. Mm-hmm. I'd say historical fiction, but other than I'm sure the interactions between people were dramatized, and some of the characters were like amalgamated. Like there were characters that were more or less meant to represent like a group of people that were actually historical. But I mean, the historical event is that there was a nuclear, I'll say, catastrophe at a Russian nuclear plant, energy plant in Chernobyl. And yeah, I'll just say that I didn't realize how close the continent of Eurasia came to I'll just say global nuclear catastrophe as a result of what happened at Chernobyl. I thought it was just your run-of-the-mill meltdown, like 3 Mile Isle and some of those other, but so on the one hand, one could say that the events were a result of the Soviet Union's decisions, but I will say that the Russian people were able to come together and prevent a global catastrophe, and that's pretty amazing in and of itself. So
there's another movie that documented the Cold War that was very similar. I think it was like 13 Days or something. Yeah, that did that. It was when I was a kid. It seemed quote boring because it was a whole lot of talking. But it was that. It was like presidents on the phone with Russia trying to strike deals, and there was a bombard. Like, or what do you call
Gorbachev, the guy who was running the Soviet Union in the 80s before it collapsed, and was the one, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. He was the prime minister or whatever you call the head of the Soviet Union, and I mean I was looking up, researching it later, and he basically said, I credit Chernobyl as being the end of the Soviet Union. Like that was the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. Yeah. Huh. So it's fascinating. Like, I mean, it helps that the performances were awesome, but basically they almost build the entire show like a mystery because the show starts with the explosion. Okay. And then all of the things, the cleanup and everything that happened afterwards, all of the literal and figurative fallout of the event. And then
I want to play Fallout.
But then, throughout it, you have this character who's investigating what went wrong. So it's almost like, and then like the last episode, they basically like break it down for you in very understandable terms. I am not a science person. And I was able to understand like what went wrong and why the explosion happened when nuclear reactors aren't designed to explode. Quite the opposite. They're designed to not explode. So how does this explosion happen? You got to go watch the show. It's so good. So amazing. Yeah. So awesome. That's my favorite thing.
I'm in.
You're in. Sold. Awesome.
I'll
watch it with you. Yeah, I gotta
watch
it right now
first, so I can get it on HBO because that's so much better than pirating.
Yeah, exactly.
So my favorite thing, I have a whole list of favorite things that have happened to me over the last couple of weeks. So I'm just going to use one a week, and you guys are going to hear them, and I'm extremely excited. So a coworker of mine went to his parents for Father's Day and came back with some artifacts from his parents' basement that are video game related. One of them is a Nintendo Power magazine from 1988.
Oof, I see that Castlevania
With-
2 Simon's
yep,
Quest on there.
on the
Wow.
cover. So, right? Okay, so in the 80s, there was no internet, or at least it was like super, super like hard to get access to the internet, right? So if you wanted to find out information, you couldn't just Google things.
Nope.
You actually had to write into Nintendo and hopefully get your questions asked. And so this actually has like the counselor's corner section of a magazine where like
you said 88?
Yep.
Wow, this magazine that you're holding right now is older than me.
Yeah.
It's existed longer than me.
I was 2 when it was published. Yep. And so I just wanted like one of the questions about Zelda. In the first quest of The Legend of Zelda, where is level 7? And like, because you didn't have the internet, right?
You didn't just Google it.
It's just like this time capsule, like looking back.
Wow, so you had to wait. You had to write in. You had to wait for your letter to get there. You had to hope that they publish it. Then you had to wait for the magazine to come. Just by then, he's probably like, "Yeah, I found it."
Right? Yeah. And like in the second quest of The Legend of Zelda, how do I find the letter? And it just maps it all out for you. And there's walkthroughs in here for Castlevania 2, which is why it's on the cover. There's a giant walkthrough for Super Mario Brothers 2 in here with magic shortcuts
look at that
and
artwork.
Warp Zone. Yeah, dude, this is just amazing. So this is my favorite thing, perusing through these. Life Force. I just got a copy of this today, which is going to be, that's a spoiler for my favorite thing later. So I got a copy of Life Force. I got a copy of Castlevania 2. Yeah, dude, this is just like, this is right up my alley. This is totally a Termite thing.
Yeah,
I have a
it's
whole
attractive.
bookshelf full of magazines that go back to the 90s. Now I have another decade
To collect.
in front. Yeah, well, these things aren't cheap, unfortunately, because they don't make them anymore. There's probably some digital dump online that I could just get them all, but it's more fun to smell.
No, it's more fun to find someone who was willing to give it to you. Yeah, that's
the other
awesome,
one,
dude.
The other one is from...
Ooh, Battletoads!
It has Battletoads on the cover, and this might also be the 80s, but there's no... It says volume 25.
Huh.
And this one, the one I was just talking about earlier, just says September, October 1988. There's no
Wow.
volume number on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one's older. I haven't done that research yet. But I have 2 potentially like 1980s Nintendo Power books.
Yeah, that's
And-
what the internet's for. Is the internet you cross-reference and say, okay, which ones do I
Right,
have? Yeah.
And so anyway, that's my favorite thing, and it's
Nice.
amazing, and I peruse those, and now I have all kind of knowledge and jazzed up about Nintendo games.
Great. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. That's favorite things. Now we can move on to the next segment of our podcast, which is...
Bow, 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 bow.
DLC.
That's some crazy rap horns we got going on.
It's like
Remix.
evolving into more just like dubstep.
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. What do we do for DLC every single... what is DLC?
Oh, DLC. It stands for downloadable content, and it is the second segment of our show where we have a kind of fun discussion that you normally wouldn't have about video games. It may or may not be related to our main topic, but it's tradition for our everything episodes to do. Yeah, thank you for the Fiddler on the Roof reference. I appreciate it. It's tradition for us to do trivia. So for each of our everything franchises, whatever that franchise is, we do trivia. The way this works is we have researched 5 questions ahead of time. We don't know each other's questions. Obviously, we don't know each other's answers. We are going to go head to head, question to question, and compete for the title of Trivia Master. I haven't been keeping track, so I'm not quite sure.
None of us have, so we don't know who's in the lead. We think we're tied, but I thought
we'll go
Penguin
back.
was in the lead.
I think I'm in the lead now, but we were tied at one point. Yeah, so we've done a handful of these everything episodes. This is probably like our 6th? Something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go back and count them. We'll find it out later. But so it's pretty simple. We've picked Uncharted related trivia questions. We're going to quiz each other, and whoever wins. So pretty straightforward. So I will let you do the honors of going first, since I believe I am the reigning champ.
All right. You believe so, but we're tied? So you won last time, but that tied it? I'm confused.
No. I think I'm ahead.
Okay, I think you are too. I said that. And
Right.
You were like, I thought we were tied.
No, but you were like, you always win. And I said,
Uh-huh.
no, you were ahead at one point.
All right.
So
So
I
I'll
think
go
I've just
first.
caught up. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. What is the name of the Uncharted game for the PlayStation Vita?
I just saw this today. I just saw it today. Is it Uncharted Golden something or other? Am I close? If I'm not
saying
close at all.
anything.
Uncharted Golden something or other.
Is that
Uncharted
your-
Golden Compass. It's
Close.
not Golden Compass. Dang it.
No, it
Golden
is-
Compass is the name of a children's
It
book.
is,
but
it is. Golden Abyss.
yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. But I saw it today. I
Yeah.
literally, and I just was like, I'm not going to need to know this.
I was like, if I say you're close, you might say Abyss, and
That's
then
funny.
you would have got it. So
Yeah.
that's why I was like, I'm not
That's
saying
fair.
anything.
Yeah, I saw it today, and I didn't think it was worthy of me to record in my short-term memory, so bully on me. All right. My question for you, first question is, which famous actors inspired Nathan Drake's personality?
Plural?
Yes, there were two very notable actors that you will recognize were the ones who inspired Nathan Drake's personality.
I know this because I read it a long time ago. Matthew McConaughey, Bradley Cooper.
Wrong.
Yeah, all right.
Johnny Knoxville
Oh,
from
yeah.
yeah.
Jackass.
Yep.
Sorry, it's a family-friendly
that's fine.
podcast, but that's the name of the movie and the show.
Johnny Knoxville and Harrison Ford
Oh,
inspired
I
Nathan
never
Drake's.
guessed that.
Oh.
Wow. I
All
wasn't even in
right.
the same
Two hard
ballpark.
ones. All right.
Mine wasn't hard. I didn't think it was. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Where are Nathan Drake's parents? What happened to them?
What? It's like, do I have to say the specific thing that happened to them, or just
like the event? They each. I mean, where's mom? Where's dad?
Okay. I could have sworn they were dead. Yeah, they're dead. Do I have to say specifically what happened to them? Like, where did they die?
You should know more than that.
Okay, they died in a plane crash.
Mom, suicide.
Oh.
Dad, abandoned. He just left. We don't know if he's dead.
Oh, we don't know if he's dead.
Yeah, he's just
and
gone.
they never. I think we're probably planning on touching on that at some point.
They
Never
probably
did.
did,
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
So, semi-difficult question.
Okay. Yeah,
I didn't know how to word
that
it.
was tough. Yeah, it's fine.
Because that's the answers I was looking for, but I'm sorry if it was a
That's
badly
fine.
worded question.
All right. Which game? No, it's fine. No, it was tough.
All right.
All right. Which game in the franchise of the mainline games has the highest Metacritic rating?
Uncharted 3.
Wrong. It's Uncharted 2. It's a 96. All of the games except for all of the
I
first.
should have known that.
The first 4 games, I believe. Well, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all above 90, I believe.
Yeah.
So, except for I think maybe 3 might be the only one that's not.
It is known in the gaming
Or one
industry.
is not. One of them is not, but
Probably 1. That's
Yeah,
the worst
it might-
one.
yeah.
It's known in the gaming industry that if 3 had come out before 2, that 3 would have been the best one.
yeah,
Because they're
I can
so
see that.
close.
Yeah,
And that's what I should have known that.
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Oh, yep. Sorry.
Okay.
No, your turn.
What writer wrote Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and Golden Abyss?
Amy.
Last name.
Amy. I have to get her last name. I'm just, my brain is going immediately to all the true crime podcasts I've been listening to and is immediately picking like a name that I know is not the right name.
You can still take a stab at it. You never know it.
Amy Hedinger or something like that.
You are so close.
I should get like partial credit for that.
like a half.
What is it?
Amy Hennig.
Hennig. Yeah, all right. I get
Yeah.
I
So
at least
close.
get a half. I should get a half for it.
I don't know what you said.
I said Hedinger. I think I was thinking of like what's the bad? Isn't there a bad guy in Final Fantasy VII by that name? Because I've been playing that.
Yes, Heidegger.
Yeah,
From
that's probably
Shinra.
yeah.
I think his name's Heidegger.
I also was going to say
Spelled
Wetterling, which is the name of a victim in a podcast that I've been listening to,
Gotcha.
a true crime podcast. But all right, I got a half point. Yay!
Okay.
Penguin's got a half point.
Yay.
All right, what nickname did fans give the franchise prior to its release in 2007? So before anyone knew anything about Uncharted, they just knew it was coming out. Fans gave it a nickname. What was that nickname?
Indiana Jones?
Is that your final answer?
I don't know.
No, it was titled Dude Raider.
Oh, yeah. Dang it. I wouldn't have guessed it. There's no way. But now that you say it, it's like totally familiar. Yeah, it was Dude Raider.
Dude Raider.
Yep. Yeah. I should have done that one. What explorer was one of the main factors in the second Uncharted?
What, Explorer?
Mhm.
Oh, like famous explorers.
Yep.
It was it Marco Polo?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I did it.
Yay, you
I
got
was
a point
like-
and a
I
half.
had to go through my head. I was like,
Bonus
I knew
round.
Shambhala. I got there from Shambhala. I don't know how. Woo!
Double Jeopardy bonus time. What was the explorer? Which explorer was the main factor in the first Uncharted?
It was Sir Francis Drake.
Yes.
Nice.
So now you have your other half point. Now you have 2 points.
Yeah, 2 points. Woo! All right. In Uncharted, sorry, my fourth question. In Uncharted 3, there's a character whose name is Ramses. He's a pirate. His ship is called the C Word. What TV show is this a reference to? I'll lowball you. What famous sitcom specifically is this a reference to?
Seinfeld?
Ooh, kind of close.
Frasier?
I'll give you one more guess.
Really? Friends?
No, it's
Huh.
Arrested Development.
Oh, is that close?
Yeah, Job has a boat. It's spelled differently, but it's also called the C Word.
Dang it. And even the joke is an Arrested
I know,
Development joke.
it's
I'm an
totally
idiot.
Arrested Development.
Just put my dunce cap on and say I'm done with the gaming industry forever.
All right, fifth question.
What is the name of Nathan Drake? Oh, this is a massive spoiler for anyone who hasn't finished all 3 games.
Yeah,
What is the name of Nathan Drake's daughter?
Oh, I knew that this question was coming, and I'm blanking on it. No, is it Jennifer?
No.
No. Okay. What is it?
Cassie.
Cassie. Yeah, I never would have gotten that.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I was like, did he name her after someone relevant to the story? And no, she just has an arbitrary name. It's unfortunate. All right. But maybe it's a good
There's
choice.
Probably a relevancy there somewhere.
All right. This one, you should be able to get this one.
I hope so. We'll get something.
Which game has the most collectibles? Which of the main game? I'll say which of the mainline games has the most collectibles?
And I got platinums in all of them except 4. But I've gotten all the collectibles in every one of them. Except for Golden Abyss. I never played that.
If you had to guess which one, I mean,
4?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
As a bonus, you might be able to tie it up here. I'll give you a tie up. How many of those? How many collectibles in 4? The most collectibles in a single
72.
game. Well, no, that's actually closer to the amount of collectibles in the first one, which is the lowest.
Oh.
There's 193.
Oh, wow.
Collectibles
193
in Uncharted 4. Yep.
Wow,
And
that's way more than I
represents
thought.
the most
Jeez.
collectibles in an Uncharted game. Yep.
That's crazy.
Cool.
All right.
I'm wondering if they include things like, I know in Uncharted Lost Legacy, because it's the one I most recently played, you can get like the pictures.
Right. There's 12 pictures.
I'm wondering if those count as collectibles.
There's secret dialogue things you have to get.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those are a pain.
I believe
like
it.
multiple game saves, trying to load up the right conversation points to do the,
Yeah.
Eh,
All right, well, that's
trophy
DLC.
hunting.
And
Dan,
Penguin takes it
Man
again.
Dan. Happy birthday.
Woo!
You win a trivia.
Yeah, I won a trivia. I'm so excited. Yeah, so that hopefully has wet your whistle for Uncharted stuff for those of you who are fans. For those of you who aren't fans,
My whistle's dry. I have no beer.
aw. Yeah, so for those of you who are fans, I hope you enjoy it. For those of you who have maybe have never played an Uncharted game, we're hoping that you
Can learn something here.
learn something
and then maybe be inspired to go play it yourself.
Exactly. Yep. So, without further ado, let's start talking about Uncharted.
Uncharted is
What is Uncharted?
a third-person action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog exclusively for the PlayStation 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm. The game is sort of it's a very cinematic game, and its emphasis is on story.
Mm-hmm. Very
And,
much narrative-driven. Cutscenes and big set pieces.
Yeah, it's
during
not
gameplay.
really until later games that they started exploring and sort of the
it
more
kind of spearheaded that. It came out at a time where Uncharted 1 for PS3 it set the tone. I mean, Amy Hennig is amazing. She wrote a lot of the Soul Reaver games for PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast and PS2. And so she wrote Uncharted 1. So now we have new technology and like bigger, expansive world with better graphics and a chance to have live action and advances in motion capturing were set. I think the first game came out in 2007, maybe 2008. And ever since then, it was like an onslaught of third-person story narrative-driven games. And so it's revolutionized the gaming industry in that regard, especially with how successful it was and how tight the controls were and how well it was. It was one of the first successful shooters on the PlayStation 3. I know with the DualShock 3, a lot of the third-party shooters were not received well on the PlayStation because of the weird way the DualShock 3 felt and how that still affected Uncharted 1 because it's the weakest of the series. But yeah, so that's Uncharted in a nutshell. I mean, that's kind of the elevator speech.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It definitely is not the kind of game for people who like to explore or customize or like a lot of choices in games. It really is a very linear, but it's a great story and it kind of sucks you into the narrative. And yeah, it's fun. Cool. And we talked about what kind of game it is. So what's its history? Where did Uncharted come from?
I even alluded to
You
that.
did, yeah.
I kind of already answered that. The sequel came out a couple years after that, probably around 2009.
We said 2000. It was 2000. I remember looking this up because that's where I found the Gold Abyss.
Yeah.
But didn't memorize the titles because I looked up. The main games came out once every 2 years.
Okay.
For the first 3, and then it was 5 years between 3 and. So it's 2007, 2009, 2011, and then 2016.
Am I really right? I really did. I just wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So good job.
Could have used that in some trivia knowledge where that happened.
Yeah, they're pretty recent, pretty late series, but they definitely sort of people consider 1 kind of the greatest PS3 game, and the franchise is
the first one.
Yeah,
no, the greatest PS3 game would not be. It'd be Last of Us.
Yeah, I'm not saying the greatest. I'm saying, sorry, I should have said one of the greatest. It's considered one of the greatest.
I was like, wait a
PlayStation
minute,
3
no.
games. Yeah, sorry. It's definitely considered. It's definitely one of the highest rated. No, it's my bad. I used the wrong words. So it's it's a very highly regarded franchise. It's some people in a lot of ways. Some people consider Nathan Drake kind of like one of the mascots for.
Oh, he totally is the face of PlayStation.
For PlayStation, yeah. In the same way that Master Chief is to Microsoft, and I don't know, Mario is to Nintendo.
Yeah, and you have the Crash Bandicoot out, like he's the mascot for PlayStation as well. But
gosh, can you imagine some Nathan Drake and Smash Bros?
No, it'd be a terrible choice.
It would be
like Snake
of all the
Solid Snake in Smash has always been terrible.
But it's still awesome that he's there.
Yeah, it's cool that he's there.
I just can't imagine what would his final Smash be like, driving a Jeep into the
probably
into the Smash.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, cool. Then let's sort of talk about what was your first experience with Uncharted?
I played Uncharted 2 first, and it was on a friend's PlayStation 3 in his basement, and it was what sold me on PlayStation 3 because at the time, the PlayStation 3 was kind of the underdog console.
It definitely
Everything was like the worst on PlayStation 3. As I alluded to earlier with the third-party shooters, it wasn't just that. It was really hard to program for, and so the games performed poorly. Frame rates were bad, graphics weren't as good, and the controls were clunky, and the mechanics didn't feel good. So having that mindset about PlayStation 3 in general sort of like was proven wrong when I played Uncharted 2, and I was like, oh my gosh, the opening scene with like the train hanging from the snow like cliff, and you're like climbing up through it all, because there's a lot of climbing in Uncharted, and kind of like Assassin's Creed and Tomb Raider now.
Oh, it's like every game.
Right.
Every single player story-driven narrative game has climbing in it. Freaking God of War, Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn. At least Breath of the Wild is something different with the climbing, and made it, instead of a linear path, you can kind of just climb whatever you want, however you want. Yeah, they made a sort of mini game out of climbing, but yeah, no, it definitely started the whole like 30% of our game is just climbing.
Yep. And I was just so blown away by this PlayStation 3 exclusive. I was like, oh, this developer knows how to use the PlayStation 3 for what it's supposed to be used for. As an exclusive, they can optimize for that console and not have to worry about making it work on PC and Xbox 360. So that was my first experience with it in my friend's basement, which set me on a course to I need to buy a PlayStation 3. And I bought one before Uncharted 3 came out. I think I got mine in 2010, was when my first trophy was popped. Fun fact for you, my very first trophy ever, Gran Turismo 5.
Oh, okay.
But I got a PlayStation 3.
I thought you were going to say Uncharted 2. But
nope. Completely off.
That's
whatever.
Funny.
Fun fact for you. But
cool.
So that was my experience with Uncharted. After I bought a PlayStation 3, I had to have all of them. So, of course, I collected them and then played through them all.
Yep. My first experience came much later in life. I was
like last year.
Yeah, last year. After you talking the franchise up to me on the podcast, I decided to go ahead and take the plunge. It was convenient too because it was around the same time I think I was playing. What did I? No, so I just here was the trail. I believe it went God of War, and then. So I love God of War, and then right before God of War came out, so I was waiting for God of War to come out, and I picked up The Last of Us from you. And so I loved The Last of Us, but then I got sidetracked from God of War, so then I picked it back up once I finished God of War, and I finished it and loved it and wanted more, and so you're like, well, you could try Uncharted. I was like, what other games are like The Last of Us that I can get into? And you're like, well, Uncharted is made by the same developer, but it's different. But I guess in my mind I was thinking, this is going to be like Tomb Raider mixed with The Last of Us. It's got to be amazing. It wasn't that. So I did have to kind of force myself to adjust, especially considering that Uncharted 1 was a PS3 game, is much older. So once I kind of like adjusted to what it was, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I will say one grabbed me because of its story about halfway through. But the game itself really was a slog to get into. But then about halfway through, I was like, okay, first one's very weak. I mean, it's a very shallow story too. Like the characters haven't really developed. There's not actually a lot of that much dramatic tension, and everything's just kind of like hunky dory. So a lot of weird plot holes too. But we'll get into that. So cool. That's my experience. Yeah. So it's definitely I can definitely, after having consumed the entire franchise as recently as this month, finishing up this month.
Yeah, it's worth noting that you played through the remaster, the Nathan Drake collection.
Yes,
on
I never
PS4.
played the original PS3 ones.
Blue
exactly.
Point is the developer that took the Uncharted series and ported it to PS4.
Cool.
And they didn't just like port it; they actually went in and
cleaned
problems.
Up some stuff. That's nice.
And so Uncharted 1 in the PlayStation 4 version looks, feels, and plays like Uncharted 2 and 3. Whereas on the original PlayStation 3, Uncharted 1 is like a different child.
Interesting.
It feels entirely different.
Well, yeah, then I'm going to have a whole different perspective. Yeah, I would have probably hated it.
If you had to go back to the PS3 version of Uncharted 1, you would not like it.
Kind of amazing the franchise, I mean, at least from today's standards, it's kind of amazing the franchise became so popular. But I guess at the time, it was
2 just set the world on fire. I mean, 2 was so revolutionary in its storytelling and its set pieces, and we'll get there.
Nuts.
But,
Yep. All right, cool. Well, favorites. We always do favorites. Kind of go through. We have, it's different for each franchise because not all franchises have things. We couldn't do favorite fighter for Uncharted. So we'll go through the favorites we were able to pull out of this. So it's not as much as some of our other ones, but we almost always start with what's your favorite game in the main franchise?
My favorite game, as of today, doing research for this show, made me realize how awesome Uncharted 3 is.
You jerk. I thought for sure you were going to say Uncharted 2, because you always
has been 2
talked.
my whole life
until
today.
Yeah, I really liked 2. Don't get me wrong. 2 was amazing.
Yeah.
But 3 was the only one that I was with the entire way. I was like, because I just finished 2, so I was already off the high of 2, and I was like, I want to jump into this right away. And I never like wanted to put it down. I like played through it, just consumed the whole thing. So 3 is my favorite as well.
Why 3 is favorite? Why is 3 your favorite?
For those reasons I just said about the whole like being gripped by the story. Yeah. I always am more so. One thing about Uncharted that's interesting is each game kind of has a different, like, locale flavor to it, if that makes sense.
Which is why I like 2 the most.
Yeah.
Because it's locale flavor.
It's like snow. It's like
it
ice.
ends in Tibet.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Himalayas.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is amazing. There's an awesome set-piece fight. This giant building that you fight down as it collapses. And it's really cool. Plus the ice train. So lots of ice and snow. It's kind of blue haze. Yeah, that's why I loved it too.
Right. So 1 is like jungle. Yep. Most of the game takes place in jungle. 2 is mostly takes place in snow. 3 is desert. And typically I don't like the desert games, but I don't know. I think it was maybe like there was a lot of like they did a lot of cool things with the vehicles in that game, and like jumping onto motorcycles and then jumping onto trucks and then running over the enemy bad guys' motorcycles. Yeah. It was all very, very just like high adrenaline. I also liked how that was the first game they started to kind of tone down the supernatural elements, because canonically, even though you fight what looked like djinn monsters at the end, canonically speaking, he's hallucinating that entire experience. So they were really starting to realize, people like this game more for the like kind of realism elements in it, and not so much for the fighting Nazi zombies in a submarine, or fighting Wendigo creatures in the Himalayas, or what were they blue skin?
They were like, they were taking the sap of Shambhala, the stone from the tree.
Yeah, blue.
And they had like jacked up, basically like Hulk rage, but blue.
Yeah, blue Hulks. Yeah, blue Hulks and Wendigos.
And like, they were in Yeti costumes. Yeah, anyway. Yeah. And so Uncharted 3, they were just drinking poisoned water.
Right.
And so hallucinating everything.
Right, yeah.
And with that, it's like, I'm unstoppable, I'm a god. And so they just were relentless and super powered, because your bullets wouldn't stop them.
Right.
Same effect in Uncharted 2 with the super blue guys.
Right.
Ultimately and practically, it's just the same thing.
They were able to write it off more
with a
as, but it was because they started to realize, they're like, I think that was, and then Uncharted 4 had like none of that, so that's why. That's eventually the direction they took.
I liked 3 the most. Because they tapped into a depth of Nathan Drake they haven't touched before.
Yes.
They opened with a childhood scene where he meets Sully, and Sully takes that fatherhood figure, takes under his wing, right? Sully takes Nathan after a debacle trying to steal, I believe it was a ring.
Yeah,
it was Nathan Drake's ring, which is what he wears on his, like, so you get the origin story of the ring he wears on his, as a necklace, as well as because we learn his father abandoned him and his mother committed suicide. That's crazy deep,
right? That
and
depth
super dark already.
Yeah.
And now you see Sully's like effect, because in 1 and 2 it was established that Sully was just a longtime friend, but you didn't know the gravity of their relationship other than just in what was going on at the time. So this was like a reach back, which expanded Nathan Drake's depth. And then the villain was also involved from his past and knew his mom, and then it's revealed that who his mom is, this crazy renowned famed historian in Uncharted 4,
right? And
it's all tied together. And so I just like, I know I mentioned Uncharted 4, but 3 really took the series to a deeper level.
They really started to
with the main characters.
Nathan Drake is, Johnny Knoxville and Harrison Ford, like, not really deep character. You can tell a lot of the influences of Nathan Drake were really just like, how do we distinguish him from Lara Croft? Right. You know what I mean? They made him poor, they made him a man, and they made him like kind of like witty and charming and smiley in ways that Lara Croft tends to be a little bit more stoic and feminine, which is ironic because Lara Croft was also meant to be distinct. Like the motivations for designing Lara Croft were to distinguish her from Indiana Jones.
Right.
So it's kind of like they went full circle and just made Nathan Drake like a more charming Indiana Jones, I guess. Which I don't know if that's possible, because Indiana Jones is very charming. So yeah, he's basically just Indiana Jones, but he's really shallow in the first game. I feel like they did start to add in, more depth to him in 2, and then really 3 is where they started to realize, oh, we have a fully fleshed out character. So that by the time you get to 4, you actually have, I would say 4 probably still has the best actual like character and like character. I mean, I would say 4 is more, we talked about plot and character in our video game lit series. I would say 4 is very much more a character driven game than any of them, but I still like 3 better. So
yeah, me too.
So
would you think, one question about 3, I don't know how fresh in your mind, do you think the scene on the cruise ship, I guess you're escaping from Ramses and he blows the ship up and it's sinking, is a giant set piece with a ballroom that's sinking. It's awesome.
I remember that.
Like that whole thing is cool, and you're fighting a bunch of dudes inside of a giant cruise ship. And you escape, and Ramses drowns. Do you think that was even necessary? Like there was a whole chunk of the story.
I don't remember it. Like it's not fresh enough, so that's not what stands out to the game.
You'd be able to back me up on that because it's been a while since I've played it.
That's what I mean. Like the fact that it doesn't stand out makes me wonder if it was
even
necessary.
Relevant. Yeah, because when I was reading a plot synopsis, I was like, why did they even include that?
Why are they there? Yeah,
other than just padding. I was curious if that's okay.
Well, I don't remember anything about it.
If you think so, listeners.
What I remember, one of the most, I just restarted my sentence like 3 times there.
That's what editing's for.
Yep, that's what editing's for. One of my favorite things that I remember about 3 that is notable, because I think it's very artistic, the way they did it, was the mirage scene, where you're wandering through the desert, you're dying of thirst, basically, and you're hallucinating the entire thing. I thought that, gameplay-wise, they really, they drew me in that moment. So I felt they did something very artistic with the gameplay and
that was
the story.
Because
don't you loop back? Like, don't you go in a circle for and go back to the same well? And that's so frustrating. And you think you're going towards you see what you think is an oasis, and it just ends up being the same dry well. It's like, so they definitely conveyed a feeling in 3 that I hadn't really seen them do up to that point. So I remember that. That was good. So cool.
If you listeners think that plot that I was talking about, point of the cruise ship sinking, is irrelevant, let us know.
Or important or super relevant.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it stands as contrast of with drowning is water versus the desert. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know. Anyways, moving on with favorites. Who is your single favorite character in the story?
I always gravitate towards the protagonist of a story. I'm so shallow.
Oh, really?
So Nathan Drake, he's my favorite character.
Nathan's good. He's very good for a protagonist. I would say I'm torn between, I really, really like Sully.
Yeah.
I thought Sully was a very compelling character. I always liked that, I always like that I can expect him. He's a very comfortable character, and he's fun. He's dry. He's got that very dry humor that I like. And although I was convinced he was going to be a traitor in the first game, I was in my mind, I was convinced. So I was, I think because of that, because he didn't end up betraying me, I'm like, you are my only friend.
Yep.
You are my oldest and only friend. So I was always anytime Sully was suspicious of another character, I'm like, yeah, screw them. Sully doesn't like them.
That's perfect writing
like
because that's kind of Nathan Drake's only true friend, other than his wife. But
and I was gonna say that was my other character that I'm torn is I really like Elena. Especially considering she was, again, the contrast, she was just a shallow love interest character
in the first game.
And then ends up being this really interesting dynamic character. Although I will say that the knock against her that would probably put Sully in my favorite character is I do get tired of the we're together, we're not, we're together, we're not, we're together, we're not. Every single game you learn that something went terrible off screen between them, and then finally they get married and end up happily ever after and have a daughter in 4. But did you know, by the way, this was one of the trivia questions I almost picked. The voice actress who plays Elena didn't intentionally audition for the role. She accompanied her friend who was auditioning.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. That's funny.
She got the part. I feel so bad for whoever.
It always reminds me of Jennifer Aniston. It's weird. I don't know if you do that or not. But Jennifer Aniston,
I can see
Friends.
That. Yeah.
Just Elena's voice and look.
I can do that. All right. What's your favorite location that they major location? I mean, you can talk about any of the locations really if there was anything that stood out to you, but any of the cities would count.
I really like the big giant Indian city in Lost Legacy.
Okay.
I don't know why, because that is a spinoff DLC from 4, and so it's not.
No, it was
featured.
beautiful though.
It was gorgeous, wide open, and architecturally, level design, everything was just phenomenal. To have this massive, huge scaled place, but still have all the minutia required to do puzzles and traverse and climb, and then have a fight in it, all in the same. Like I can't even imagine the genius behind the level designer for that. Because it's one thing to design a level for combat. Yeah. Like, we're going to have an encounter here. And so you have, like, cover points, and you have entry points, spawn points for the enemies, and, like, that's how you logistically would lay out the level. Yeah. But then there's, like, here's a giant open scene with a crazy complex puzzle that, like, creates new paths, trajectory, stuff opens up, closes, swing on the ceiling, stuff falls and breaks apart. But there's combat in the same room.
Yeah, and I love what I love about that city, that last city in Lost Legacy is the
can't remember the name either, huh?
I can't remember the name either, but I remember it was Shiva's city. I remember that it was like Shiva's city. Was story wise what it was, but I just remember like you walk in and it really sparks the imagination. I mean, my jaw dropped a little bit when I saw like when they show the not panorama, but the whatever, you open it up and you see the entire city, and it's this like Indian architecture, very intricate, but it's all built under this giant like cave with just a crack, and it really just sparked. I remember just thinking like, man, how many actual hidden cities are out there just like tucked between caverns, you know what I mean, like tucked underneath like overhangs of rocks, formations and stuff like that. They're just like inaccessible. Like it really sparked my imagination. I'd say that my favorite location, honestly, I really liked a lot of the locations in 4. I liked the Pirate City. I felt like the Pirate City was like a harken back kind of to
that was cool.
I was going to say season 1 to the first game where it's like, oh, we're back to the tropical locations, but now it's very, it's modern graphics. It's fleshed out. It looks beautiful. And then I really liked the whole like colonial architecture in this like jungle, like just in this jungle area. I would say it would be a toss up between the Pirate City in 4, and I really also like the first open world area in 4, the Madagascar, where it's just like, it looks like something out of like Lion King or whatever, and you're driving your Jeep. That was the first time you got like driving mechanics, and there's little places to explore, but there's also places to fight guys. So I would say those are.
What was the where in Uncharted 4, Avery was the pirate they were going after, and they found his ship at the end. Where was that? Was it just the Caribbean?
I don't remember.
Because it was definitely.
I thought it was like in the Indian Ocean. I thought it was like towards Singapore or something like that.
Maybe,
but maybe I'm wrong. I just remember the sword fight and the shit, and I remember driving
Well, it wasn't
towards
the cave the ship was in itself. It was getting there that I loved.
Yeah.
Because it was a gorgeous paradise with, like, it was island hopping.
Yeah.
Right? You were on a little boat. You had to hop between the islands. It was just gorgeous. Beaches, tropical.
There's the scene in Scotland, too, where you go to the graveyards and you're going to the pirate graveyards. That was good, too. Yeah, my gosh. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. All right, cool. I'm going to throw this out there because I thought I had written it down, but this is going to be a surprise one that I didn't write down. Who's your favorite villain of the 4 villains,
so good,
5 villains?
I hate them all. Lazarevich from 2 is sticking out to me more than anyone else.
That's the one I was going to go with too, because he's so intimidating.
Just copy this.
I know, but he's so he's the one that stands out. In fact, when I was thinking about that, I had to actually go in my head. I was like, who are the villains other than 4? Because I was just playing 4.
Talbot's pretty bad too.
Was Talbot the one in 4?
I thought it was. Who's the guy in the suit in 4 who makes you psychedelic, who hits you with the dart? I thought it was Talbot.
Maybe it is.
But I could be mixing that up.
Uncharted 3 was a woman.
Yeah, it was Marlowe.
Yeah.
But 3 at the very end, it was the final boss. You were like, the desert was falling apart, and you had to like escape, and you're jumping on platforms and sand everywhere, and you're like hallucinating with that dude in the suit was the final boss.
Yeah.
I think his name was Talbot, but I'm not sure.
I know there was the guy from 4 who was like a jerk. I hated him. He was a little slimy, and you sword fight him at the end.
Yeah, Nadine's boss.
Yeah.
Was that she hired?
Yeah, but I don't remember his name either. I'm blanking on his name. So I would say because he stands out, even though I didn't remember his name, but the villain from 2, Lazarevich or whatever, like just so intimidating. He just had that like he was kind of he was kind of one-dimensional, but he was just like he was such a good counterpoint to Nathan Drake. He was disfigured, and he was like,
he was relentless.
Completely,
he had no grace.
Completely, just
boom, just off you,
and just
for disobeying.
It's just such a great contrast, and just he was like it's that kind of unstoppable force versus the immovable object. He was the immovable object, and seeing Nathan Drake just run up against him time after time, and just you're playing Nathan, and you're like, you could just feel the desperation of this guy who's just, again, like you said, relentless. He's not like a backstabber like some of the other bad guys. He's not, like he's just like brute force. Like, we're not going to try to solve these puzzles. We're just going to blow up the mountain until we find what we're looking for. Like, until we find Shambhala, so he was vicious. So that's the one that I would say is my favorite villain.
Sweet.
So cool. Favorite deadly situation that should have killed a character.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many.
How many of them?
So many.
There's scenes where Nathan just like falls or gets blown up. Or like the scene in 4 after the beach crash, and he's laid out on the beach. I remember he like takes so many falls climbing, and there's just and he's like limping and holding his side when he gets up. And the character's really I'm like,
and they revealed, and they revealed that like Nathan Drake, if you play through the game all the way through, canonically what happens is Nathan Drake never dies or never gets shot. Sorry,
right?
Like what you see as him getting shot and it getting grayer and grayer is. Luck or whatever, like narrow misses, even though it's like he still reacts in pain, you know, but no, I
find it hilarious sometimes with some of the ragdoll deaths.
Yes,
and it does that like you just have, like you're trying to jump in a hurry, so you're mashing X, and like you just completely jump in the wrong direction.
Well, my answer when I was thinking about it, because there were so many, my answer to the question of like what's my favorite deadly situation that should have killed a character, I think immediately what are the situations that I died in multiple times. And so the single most like I died so many times was like the last scene in 2 where you're escaping from the crumbling city of Shambhala and just over and over and over and over again. I died so many times. So I'd say that. Also the train, as well, as iconic as that scene is, the train in 2, it's like multiple times I'm like, no way. Your weight alone would have resulted. Yeah, you would have been done.
Was it Uncharted 2 that you fought a helicopter from the train with RPG? Or was that one?
I don't remember. There was so many. There was a lot of that kind of thing in Lost Legacy as well. Yeah, there was. There was a scene where you have to like jump onto jump onto a wire hanging from a helicopter. Yeah. But there's still like hundreds of guys shooting at you. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm dead. I should be dead right now. Not only in the game, but also legitimately, Chloe, you're done. You just got riddled with bullets. So.
Oh, there's a trophy in that scene. It's really hard to do.
Are there? Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, and speaking of which, it's a good segue to talk about the set pieces in general. Because like Uncharted 2 had that scene where the building's collapsing while you're fighting dudes. And if you look out the window, the whole environment's moving. It's all real time, all real, like actual physics, not scripted. Yeah. And it's just amazing. Like your jaw just dropped. I've never experienced this in a video game before. It's always been these like scripted things.
I credit,
and they continue every single game.
I credit Uncharted's use of like collapsing environments to like inspiration from like what God of War started, where it was like the things you're fighting are just massive. Like you jump onto the hand of a titan. Yeah, the scale, exactly. And I feel like they took that idea and just applied it to like a realistic setting of like cities collapsing or trains just flying past the character's head. So it's very, I mean, again, it's very, the only word to describe it is cinematic, just completely like you feel like the stakes are real because just everything around you is a cacophony of madness. It's great.
Yeah. And it's cinematic. It set the tone for the entire industry to chase after these giant cinematic experiences. Yeah.
Which is great because our next question is what kind of impact, influence, or innovation has Uncharted brought to the industry and culture?
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
They took all of the cool things about a summer blockbuster movie and applied them to a video game in an artful way.
Yep.
And mixed it, like I was alluding to earlier, with level design.
Yep.
And things like the gameplay mechanics play into the level design, which plays into the giant set pieces and the cinematic experience. And the scale. When you're scaling a mountain, the camera will pan away and show Nathan Drake like tiny. That it's just to show how far off the ground you are, how like big this area or this wall that you're trying to climb or this cliff face. Or like then in 4 they added the hook shot thing you can swing from, and so it's just these massive like gaps and canyons that you're swinging from. And if you do, it just change. Like most games do that normally. We have an entire Tomb Raider reboot series that mimicked it. We have Assassin's Creed that copied it.
Yeah.
Big giant set pieces, big open world. Far Cry even borrows from it, being a first person shooter. So there's elements of Uncharted like sprinkled throughout the entire gaming industry today. And there's like that's kind of what we expect. That's the new bar, at minimum expectation for any sort of new third-person exploring game.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of putting your main character into danger is something that I wouldn't say they're the first to do that, but even in like Tomb Raider games, Lara Croft is this unstoppable BA. You know, every single shooter from the 2000s is some space marine who's unstoppable, just can't. And so like having Nathan Drake just legitimately be out of his depth in many times and legitimately you feel like you're in danger.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen that outside of, I guess, horror games do that a lot. So just having that in an action game, you
Yeah.
know, where it's not meant to be horror, but you're still sitting there on the edge of your seat. Like, yeah, and yeah, all that kind of adrenaline rushing. You know, I think of games like Just Cause and other games
totally
that just,
like
you
Uncharted.
know, like everything's, you know, your character is just in these situations where it's like they get by the skin of their teeth, just like in action movies, just like in blockbusters. So yeah, it really just kind of changed what's possible in video game storytelling. So, and video game action sequences. So yeah, definitely. Cool. All right. Well, what do you want to see from Uncharted in the future? What's your Uncharted games wish list?
Ooh, an Uncharted 5 with Nathan and Elena, but now Cassie, and they're all there. I want to see a continuation.
I can just see Cassie taking over. I would like
lot
to
of people
see.
say that.
I like to see hang Nathan up on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I want eventually for God of War as well. Like out with
Kratos
the
is
old and
done.
with the new. I mean, I know that sounds
Atreus
callous,
picked up.
but yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just have like the next generation of characters. We don't always have to drag out the next, like the same main character over and over again. We don't have to have. Honestly, we don't have to have Master Chief in every Halo game. We
But
don't
the
have
ones
to have
without him aren't as
Kratos.
good. I'm looking at you, Halo 5. You spend half the game playing as
But
someone
what if
else.
Nathan Drake serves as like the Sullivan role? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you're playing as Cassie, and I mean honestly, I thought Lost Legacy did a really good job of like changing up the main characters. It didn't feel that weird to be playing Chloe instead of playing Nathan Drake. So
That was a good character to pick, too. Because
yeah.
Chloe was with Nathan Drake in Uncharted 2, doing
Yeah.
the same climbing and scaling
yeah,
that
exactly.
Nathan was.
Yeah. So I definitely could see them having Cassie take over. So
I want more of the same, which sounds lame. But Uncharted Lost Legacy is the newest entry. It was a spin-off DLC. Full-fledged physical copy was made for Uncharted 4, which used different characters and it was set after the events of 4. So I just want more of that. Like, okay, throw in some Uncharted characters and make it more Uncharted.
Yeah,
Same
I would
stuff.
be happy.
Don't change the formula at all.
Yep, I would be happy for more games like Lost Legacy that take place in the same world, have the same flavor and same feel to them, but are different characters. Like I want to see a young Sullivan. Can you imagine like take the Uncharted, take Sullivan when he was like Nathan's age, and then have an adventure that takes place in the 70s or 60s or whatever.
That'd be sweet.
That would be an awesome Uncharted
Yeah,
game.
it would.
Or have like the next adventure of Sam, and then we play as Sam. You know, they have a good lexicon of characters. I would even be fine with Lost Legacy too. You know what I mean? Like a full-fledged game. And that was my biggest gripe with Lost Legacy. That was my biggest complaint is
It ended too soon.
just as I was getting into it, just as I was feeling the character drama, just as I was starting to, because at first I was like, Chloe, really? Because I didn't really care for Chloe in Uncharted 2. But then they like made, and at first I was like, they're kind of forcing like character onto her. But then like it did its job. I was like, oh, I actually care about this character and I care about Nadine. And they have character development, and just as I was like, I want to see more of this, like it ended, and I was like, you know, like I knew it was coming to a head. I wasn't stupid, but like I really felt, I mean, it was very clear that they were like, oh, this DLC is just barely long enough for us to sell it and package it as its own game. So let's just do that. And so it kind of felt like a cash grab in that regard, which was disappointing. Because I was like, they really could have made a full 20 chapter story out of this, and I really wanted that. So
Well, it was cheaper than the mainline game, so it was it was
that's
$40 new, and
Right.
it quickly went on sale. So
yeah,
you
I
can
mean,
get it cheap now.
that's fair, but still, I felt like the game had enough promise that they could have done it more justice by just making it a full game. So,
But they had Last of Us Part 2 to start working on. They had time for that.
true. Yeah, I would just like to see more kind of, I guess I'd say spin-offs. I don't have to see an Uncharted 5. And if they do an Uncharted 5, let's pick it up with the next generation. But I'm with you. I don't want to see any super crazy innovations. I don't want them to suddenly make it an open world
I don't
game.
Either. Yep.
If anything, like maybe half a step towards open world, like God of War did, where it's still very linear, but it has open world areas for exploration and puzzles and stuff like that. Yeah. So I just want to see more depth in the story, more depth in the characters, and more flesh out this world a little bit more and I just want to take me on some more adventures, Uncharted, please. Come on, Naughty Dog.
That's part of why we wanted to do this show now in the summertime, is because the adventures and the treasure hunt that Nathan Drake's always involved with, that's kind of the plot driving piece, is the plot, what do you call that? The plot device is usually the explorer that he's chasing someone's treasure after.
Yeah,
We
MacGuffin.
alluded-
Yeah, the MacGuffin is there's some kind of MacGuffin. El Dorado, Shambhala.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool to like see the pseudo history.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like how they weave the pseudo history in there, but that's great because it always gives you a chance to kind of, I don't know, it's different from what most games do. I mean, there are a lot of games that draw on history, like Assassin's Creed, but this is one where I don't know. I feel like I enjoy the history more Tomb Raider does it a lot too, but then Tomb Raider, like, Shadow of the Tomb Raider decided to be like, oh, there's this whole hidden city where people are still alive, and it's like, they're not people in blue, they're not blue monster demons, they're just people. And I'm like...
Rise of the Tomb Raider did the same thing.
Kind of, yeah. They did do this, yeah,
Their
more or less.
hidden camp in the
Yeah,
mountains.
yeah, and I'm like, that's not, to me, that's not as interesting as this dead society that's, you're trying to uncover its secrets. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So... I always grew up on Indiana Jones. I grew up on
and Uncharted feels like
Tomb Raider, and that's exactly what they feel like. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, just want more. Give me more games.
Yes.
More Uncharted, please, but also more Last of Us, because I like that a lot, too.
It's coming.
So, yep.
Not officially announced, but everyone speculates February.
If you want to hear more about our thoughts on Naughty Dog, we did a whole developer profile on them. So, one of our series about developer profiles. So, this is our kind of second time touching on Naughty Dog fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can check that out. That's pretty much it for our everything Uncharted.
If you want to give us feedback, if we are wrong, if we've incorrectly stated facts, if you have ideas that we didn't cover, if you have your favorite things we want to hear about, and I want to know, is the cruise ship scene necessary in Uncharted 3, you can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bit podsmash.com. We have links to Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio for all of your podcasting needs. If you find a platform that we don't exist on, let us know, and we'll put ourselves there. Because as far as I know, you can find us everywhere. And we are on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. We have a subreddit of 80-Bit Podsmash, so you can hit us up there, start a thread, start a conversation with each other amongst the community. We'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to have you guys interacting with each other. You can add us all of those social media platforms as 80-Bit Podsmash, 80BIT Podsmash.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot about we've been encouraging you more to give us feedback and like engage in conversations with us. And one of the things I want to kind of highlight is for anyone who's listening to this and thinks that our show is complete trash and has gotten this far, thank you. We want to hear your feedback too, like, because we want to hear what we can do to improve. If you just either disagree with us or think that there's something we can do to improve, or we're just bored and can think of ways that we can improve the podcast, or even give us conversations that you think would be interesting for us to talk about, then we want to hear that feedback as well, because that's important to help us get better. So even if you've said, I've written them off as not a podcast I want to listen to, like, come tell us why. Come tell us why you don't want to listen to any more episodes so that we can improve, and hopefully future listeners will enjoy us. So
that's right.
Both positive and negative feedback is more than welcome. We just want to hear from you guys. So yeah, we'll hopefully hear from you soon, and you'll hear from us next week.
See you next week.